CEO interviews his fiancée, but falls for Cinderella. You won't believe what happens next. Welcome to Stories TH. In this video, we'll explore the importance of balance in life and how it can lead to greater happiness and fulfillment. Life can be hectic, but finding that perfect balance between work, relationships, and personal growth is essential for a well-rounded, peaceful life. If you find this topic inspiring, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Stories TH for more insightful content. The Unexpected Encounter, a story of love, ambition, and new beginnings. Life often unfolds in unexpected ways, and for Emily Carter, that truth couldn't have been more evident. At 26 years old, Emily had spent the past few years working diligently in a fast-paced tech company. With her passion for helping people and her drive for success, she had already earned the respect of her colleagues. But there was one thing that she was missing in her life: love. Despite her growing career and accomplishments, Emily felt something was lacking. She found fulfillment in her work, yet, in the quiet moments, she longed for a deeper connection. A relationship that could offer the same support and warmth she offered to others in her professional and personal life. But she never expected that her search for connection would be disrupted by an unexpected turn of events, one that would change her life forever. Emily was a dedicated woman, known for her kindness and her commitment to helping those in need. Her weekends were often spent volunteering at a local homeless shelter, helping to provide food, clothes, and, most importantly, companionship to those who were struggling. This passion for helping others came from a deeply rooted sense of empathy, something she had learned from her own humble beginnings. Having grown up in a small town, Emily knew firsthand what it was like to experience hardship, and she never forgot how important kindness and support had been in her own life. It was during one of these volunteer shifts that Emily's life took a dramatic turn. On a cold November evening, as she was handing out blankets and meals, she noticed a man sitting quietly by the doorway, watching the shelter's activities with an air of detachment. He seemed out of place, unlike the other patrons she was used to seeing. His attire was immaculate, his shoes polished to a shine, and his face, though hidden under a cap, looked stern and composed. Curiosity piqued, Emily walked over to him with a warm smile. "Hi there. Would you like some food or a blanket?" she asked kindly, trying to break the ice. The man looked up at her, his piercing eyes revealing a mixture of curiosity and hesitation. "No, thank you," he replied coolly, his voice calm but distant. Emily wasn't the type to give up so easily. "I know it's not the most comfortable place, but we try to make it as cozy as possible here," she said, hoping to connect. "My name's Emily, by the way." The man paused, then removed his cap, revealing a head of dark, neatly combed hair. "Logan," he replied with a slight nod. There was something about his demeanor, something that told Emily that Logan wasn't just another person passing through the shelter. He didn't fit the mold of someone who needed charity. And yet, there he was, sitting in the corner, looking almost out of place. Over the next few weeks, Emily saw Logan several more times at the shelter, though he never interacted with the other volunteers or patrons. He always kept to himself, quietly observing, but never accepting any help. Emily's curiosity continued to grow. Who was this man? Why did he come to the shelter? He clearly didn't need the food or the blankets. So what brought him here? Finally, one evening after a shift, Emily decided to approach him again. "Logan, may I ask why you come here?" she inquired gently. "You don't seem like you need anything. I want to understand." Logan looked at her for a long moment, as if weighing his response. Then he spoke, his voice soft but deliberate. "I come because I believe in what you're doing here," he said, his eyes meeting hers. "I don't need the food or the blankets, but I see the people you're helping, and I admire it. You're doing something important." Emily was taken aback by his response. "But you don't seem like someone who needs to be here. I mean, this shelter isn't exactly the kind of place someone like you would come." Logan's gaze shifted slightly. "I suppose I'm not who I appear to be," he said, almost cryptically. Their conversation was interrupted by a call on Logan's phone, and he quickly excused himself, leaving Emily with more questions than answers. Who was this man, and what brought him to the shelter? Why did he seem so disconnected from the other patrons, and yet speak so highly of her work? A few days later, Emily's curiosity got the better of her. She decided to do some research on Logan. A quick search online revealed that Logan Miller wasn't just a regular man off the street. He was the CEO of Miller Enterprises, one of the most successful and influential companies in the country. Logan Miller was a self-made billionaire, known for his cutthroat business practices and his high-profile role in the corporate world. The more Emily learned, the more she couldn't understand why someone like him would be spending time at a homeless shelter, acting so detached from the wealth and power he held. A few days later, Emily received an unexpected invitation. It was from Logan, inviting her to meet him for coffee. Intrigued but cautious, Emily agreed, unsure what to expect. When she arrived at the cafe, she found Logan sitting at a corner table, his usual calm demeanor in place. As she approached, he stood to greet her. "Thank you for meeting me, Emily," Logan said, his voice warm but still carrying the authority that came with his position. "I wanted to talk to you about something important." Emily, unsure of where this conversation would lead, sat down across from him. "What's this about?" she asked. Logan leaned forward slightly. "I've been watching you," he said, his gaze steady. "Not in a creepy way, I assure you, but I've been following your work at the shelter. You're an impressive woman, Emily. You've dedicated your life to helping people, and I respect that more than you know." Emily blinked, taken aback. "I don't understand," she said. "Why would you be interested in someone like me? You're a billionaire. I'm just a volunteer." Logan smiled faintly. "That's precisely why I'm interested in you," he replied. "I want to make you an offer. I want to support your work, your passion. I believe in what you're doing, and I think we could accomplish something incredible together." As Logan spoke, Emily felt her heart race. Was this some kind of proposal? Was he offering to fund her work, to help her achieve the goals she had always dreamed of? But as the conversation unfolded, it became clear that Logan's offer was more than just financial. "I want you to come work for me," Logan said, his voice low but filled with intent. "Not just as a volunteer, but as my partner. I want you to join my company and help me make real change. Together, we could create a business model that combines the best of both worlds' success and social impact." Emily was stunned. She had never expected something like this. She was just an ordinary woman, working to help people, never imagining that someone like Logan Miller would even consider partnering with her. But as she looked into his eyes, she could sense his sincerity. He wasn't just offering money, he was offering her a chance to make a difference, on a scale she had never imagined. "I don't know what to say," Emily finally whispered, overwhelmed. "I never imagined something like this, but I don't know if I'm ready for something so big." Logan nodded, understanding her hesitation. "Take your time, Emily," he said. "This isn't just about business. It's about doing something that matters. But I believe you're the one who can lead that change." That moment, sitting across from Logan Miller, was the beginning of a journey that would change Emily's life forever. It wasn't just about business, it was about finding purpose, a sense of belonging, and the opportunity to make a difference in a way she never thought possible. As they parted ways that day, Emily couldn't help but wonder if this was the beginning of a new chapter, one where her passion for helping others would align with the ambition of someone like Logan. Together, they could change the world, and for the first time in her life, Emily felt truly seen not just for the work she did, but for the potential that lay ahead. The unexpected proposal, a journey of ambition and love at 35, Olivia Jackson had built an enviable career. As a successful marketing executive in New York City, she had become known for her sharp instincts, unwavering work ethic, and ability to turn any business challenge into an opportunity for growth. Yet, despite her professional accomplishments, Olivia often felt that something was missing. She had dedicated her life to her work, putting aside personal relationships and often foregoing time with family and friends. Love, it seemed, had never been a priority, especially when she was so focused on achieving her career goals. However, that all began to change one crisp autumn evening during a corporate gala. Olivia had been invited to the event as part of her work, tasked with making connections and strengthening the company's ties with some of the city's most influential business leaders. The gala was being held at an upscale Manhattan hotel, and the room was filled with high-powered executives, famous entrepreneurs, and celebrities from all walks of life. To the outside world, it appeared to be an ordinary business event. But for Olivia, it felt like an unspoken test and opportunity to show off the successes of her company and ensure her place among the city's elite. As she navigated the crowd, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries, she found herself face-to-face with a man she had heard of but never met: Sebastian Grant, the 40-year-old CEO of Grant Enterprises, one of the largest and most successful technology companies in the world. Sebastian was known for his cutthroat business strategies, his impeccable reputation, and his ability to build profitable ventures from the ground up. He was a man who had achieved everything Olivia aspired to: power, wealth, and the kind of success that could make or break careers. At first glance, Sebastian struck Olivia as the epitome of what she had always admired: strong, confident, and untouchable. His sharp suit, perfectly styled hair, and composed demeanor made him stand out among the other guests. But when their eyes met across the room, Olivia immediately felt an unexpected spark. She wasn't sure what it was. Perhaps it was his commanding presence or the aura of authority he exuded, but something told her that this encounter would lead to more than just a professional conversation. After a few moments of shared glances, Sebastian walked toward her. Olivia, always in control, extended her hand, her confident smile in place. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Mr. Grant," she said, her tone polite but professional. "I've heard a lot about your work." Sebastian took her hand with a firm handshake, his piercing gaze never leaving hers. "The pleasure is mine, Ms. Jackson. I've heard of your achievements as well. Quite impressive, if I may say so," he responded with a touch of warmth that surprised Olivia. His reputation for being business-focused had led her to expect a more reserved greeting, but he was different, more approachable, even charming, than she had imagined. Their conversation began with the usual pleasantries about the industry, the economy, and current trends in technology, but as the evening wore on, the conversation shifted. They found themselves talking about their shared passion for business and leadership, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Olivia realized that she was enjoying herself. There was an undeniable connection between them, something neither of them had anticipated. As the gala continued, Olivia and Sebastian found themselves gravitating toward each other. What began as a simple conversation turned into a deeper exchange about their respective companies, their visions for the future, and their personal experiences navigating the business world. Olivia, ever the workaholic, had never allowed herself to entertain the idea of a relationship, especially not with someone like Sebastian, a man who was not only a peer in her field, but a potential competitor. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw something that resonated with her, something more than just business acumen. It was a shared understanding of what it took to succeed, of what it meant to be driven by ambition while still holding onto some semblance of humanity. By the end of the evening, Olivia found herself in an unexpected position. Sebastian had asked her to join him for dinner after the gala. It was a simple request, but for someone who was used to keeping professional boundaries, it felt like a leap into unfamiliar territory. She hesitated for only a moment before agreeing. Perhaps, just for once, she could allow herself to step away from work and embrace the possibility of something else. Over the following weeks, Olivia and Sebastian began spending more time together. At first, their meetings were purely business-oriented, discussing potential collaborations and partnerships between their companies. But as their conversations grew more personal, they found themselves revealing more about their lives outside of work. Sebastian, despite his success and reputation, shared his struggles with loneliness and the challenges he faced managing his company's growth. Olivia, on the other hand, opened up about her dedication to her career and her desire for more than just professional success, but a deeper connection with someone who understood her drive and ambition. Their growing bond was undeniable, but Olivia, ever cautious, kept her emotions in check. She had built her career through hard work, and she wasn't about to let anyone distract her from her goals. Love, in her mind, had always been something that could wait. But Sebastian, with his persistence and genuine interest in her, slowly broke down the walls she had so carefully constructed around her heart. It wasn't long before Sebastian made it clear that he wanted more than just a professional relationship. One evening, as they sat at a cozy restaurant in the city, Sebastian turned to Olivia with a serious expression. "Olivia," he said softly, "I've enjoyed every moment we've spent together, and I've come to realize that I'm not just interested in your business acumen or your achievements. I'm interested in you, who you are as a person. I think you're incredible, and I want to know you better in every way." For a moment, Olivia was stunned. This wasn't the kind of proposal she had ever expected, especially not from someone as powerful and accomplished as Sebastian. But as she looked at him, she realized that she, too, had begun to care about him in ways she hadn't anticipated. She had spent so much time focusing on her career that she had never allowed herself to truly open up to the possibility of love. Now, with Sebastian, she saw a chance to have both a fulfilling career and a meaningful relationship. "I didn't expect this," Olivia replied, her voice filled with uncertainty. "But I'll be honest, I'm not sure I'm ready to give up the life I've built for myself. I've spent so many years focusing on work. It's hard to imagine anything else." Sebastian reached across the table and took her hand in his touch reassuring and gentle. "I'm not asking you to give anything up, Olivia. I'm asking you to consider the possibility of building something together, a partnership. Not just in business, but in life. I think we could create something truly special, but only if you're willing to take that step with me." In that moment, Olivia realized that she was at a crossroads, one where she could either continue down the path of career-driven success, or she could take a chance on something new, something that could bring both personal fulfillment and professional growth. The idea of balancing both seemed daunting, but with Sebastian by her side, she began to see that it was possible. Over the next few months, Olivia and Sebastian's relationship blossomed. Together, they worked on business ventures, supporting each other in their respective goals while building a deeper connection. Sebastian respected Olivia's ambition, and Olivia admired Sebastian's dedication and vulnerability. They proved that it was possible to have both love and ambition, and that true success wasn't just about achievements in the boardroom. It was about finding balance and happiness in all areas of life. In the end, Olivia realized that love didn't have to take a back seat to success. In fact, it could be the thing that made her even more successful both professionally and personally. And with Sebastian by her side, she knew that her future was bright, not just in business, but in life. From rivalry to romance. A tale of unexpected connections, Olivia Harper was always the picture of professionalism. As a senior executive at one of the leading financial firms in New York, she had built a reputation for being tough, sharp, and unflinchingly competitive. She had worked tirelessly for years to reach her position at the company, and now, at 34, she was one of the most respected figures in her industry. Yet, despite her professional success, Olivia often felt that there was something missing. She had spent so much of her life focusing on her career that personal relationships had taken a back seat, and she couldn't help but wonder if it was time to change that. In the world of finance, where business deals were often driven by ambition and numbers, Olivia had never expected to find love. Romance was something that seemed out of reach, something that belonged to people who had the time and energy to indulge in it. But fate, as it often does, had other plans for Olivia. And it all began with a new hire, one who would turn her world upside down. Derek Mitchell was the newest addition to Olivia's team, and from the moment he stepped into the office, it was clear that he was different. At 28, he was younger than most of the executives at the firm, but his sharp intellect, ambitious drive, and magnetic charm made him an immediate standout. He had a quiet confidence about him, and despite his relatively young age, he was already making waves in the industry. Derek had come from a well-established family of investors, but unlike many in his position, he wasn't content to simply ride on his family's coattails. He wanted to prove himself on his own terms, and that determination resonated with Olivia, who had always valued hard work over privilege. The first time Olivia and Derek interacted, it was during a high-stakes meeting. As the team discussed strategies for a major investment project, Olivia couldn't help but notice Derek's calm demeanor and thoughtful contributions. He wasn't the type to speak just for the sake of speaking. When he said something, it was always impactful. Olivia, who was used to being the one in control, felt a shift. She found herself intrigued by his insights, and, much to her surprise, a little bit rattled by his ability to challenge her ideas without ever coming across as disrespectful. As the meeting continued, Olivia couldn't help but feel a growing sense of competition with Derek. She had always been the leader, the one who was relied upon to guide the team, and here was this young, ambitious man who seemed to have a natural knack for getting to the heart of complex issues. She couldn't deny that his presence in the office was both a challenge and an opportunity for growth. Over the next few weeks, Olivia found herself constantly in contact with Derek. Whether it was discussing project details or reviewing reports, their paths crossed more frequently. At first, the interactions were strictly professional, but there was an undeniable tension between them. Olivia, always the perfectionist, found herself questioning her own decisions in the face of Derek's fresh perspective. And Derek, who admired Olivia's leadership, began to see her not just as a superior, but as someone he could learn from. It wasn't long before their professional rivalry began to evolve into something more. They started spending more time together outside of work, grabbing drinks after long days at the office, or attending industry events together. Initially, Olivia had resisted the idea of spending time with Derek outside of the office. She had always been cautious about mixing business with pleasure, but as the weeks went on, she couldn't help but feel drawn to him. There was something about his intelligence, his humility, and his unspoken understanding of her that made her feel comfortable in a way she hadn't experienced in years. For Derek, the connection was equally unexpected. He had always admired Olivia from afar, her fierce determination, her strategic mind, and her ability to command a room. But as they began to spend more time together, he realized that there was more to her than just the professional image she projected. Olivia had a depth to her that Derek had never seen in anyone else, and it was clear that beneath her tough exterior was a woman who longed for connection, just like he did. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at the office, Olivia and Derek found themselves at a quiet bar near their building. The atmosphere was relaxed, and for the first time in a long time, Olivia let her guard down. She laughed freely, something she hadn't done in what felt like forever. As they chatted, the chemistry between them was undeniable. What had once been a professional rivalry had shifted into something deeper, something more personal. Derek, sensing the shift, decided to take a chance. "Olivia," he said softly, his voice filled with genuine curiosity. "I know we've been working together for a while, and I can't help but feel there's something more here. I admire you, not just for your work, but for who you are as a person. And I'd like to get to know you better, outside of work." Olivia was taken aback by his words. She had spent so much time focusing on her career that she hadn't allowed herself to consider the possibility of something more. But as she looked into Derek's eyes, she realized that he wasn't just offering her a chance at romance, he was offering her a partnership, a connection that could balance her life in ways she hadn't imagined. "I don't know what to say," Olivia replied honestly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I've spent so much time working, building this career. I've never really thought about something like this. But I'm curious too. I'm not sure if I'm ready to let anyone in." Derek smiled, his expression warm and patient. "I get it. I do. And I'm not asking you to change anything. I'm just asking for a chance. Let's see where this can go, without any expectations." Olivia sat in silence for a moment, processing his words. She had always prided herself on her ability to control her own destiny, but Derek's sincerity made her question whether maybe it was time to let go of that control, just a little. What could it hurt to explore this connection? What was the worst that could happen? "I think I'd like that," Olivia finally said, her voice steady but filled with a hint of excitement. "I think I'd like to see where this goes." From that moment on, Olivia and Derek's relationship began to blossom. They navigated the complexities of working together while also building something more personal and meaningful. It wasn't always easy. There were moments of doubt, professional challenges, and the occasional awkwardness that comes with blending work and romance. But through it all, they discovered that their connection was stronger than the barriers they had built around themselves. As the months passed, Olivia realized that she had been wrong to think that she couldn't have both a successful career and a fulfilling personal life. With Derek by her side, she had found a balance she had never thought possible. She had always thought that love would be a distraction, but instead, it had become the very thing that made her stronger, more focused, and more fulfilled in every aspect of her life. In the end, Olivia learned that love wasn't a hindrance to success, it was a driving force that could propel her even further. And with Derek, she had found not just a partner, but a companion who understood her, challenged her, and supported her dreams. Together, they forged a path that was both professionally rewarding and personally fulfilling, proving that sometimes the best things in life are the ones we never see coming. The power of resilience. A journey through hardship and love for most people. 30 years old marks a time when they've figured things out, when their career is starting to settle, their relationships are falling into place, and the dreams they've worked for are becoming reality. But for Rachel Scott, a 30-year-old corporate attorney from Chicago, life hadn't quite gone according to plan. She had always been an ambitious woman, driven by a desire to succeed and make a difference. Yet, despite all her accomplishments, she found herself struggling to balance her demanding job and the growing pressure to start a family. Her personal life had always taken a back seat to her career, and now, as she entered her 30s, Rachel couldn't help but wonder if she had missed her chance for love. Rachel's world was all about the law, contracts, negotiations, courtrooms, and endless paperwork. She thrived in the fast-paced environment of her firm, constantly climbing the corporate ladder and impressing her superiors with her intelligence, dedication, and unmatched work ethic. But despite her professional success, Rachel felt unfulfilled. She had no time for relationships, no time for the family she had always dreamed of. She had buried herself in work, thinking that one day, when she reached the top, everything would fall into place. However, as the years went by, Rachel started to feel the weight of her choices. She had watched her friends settle down, get married, and start families, while she remained single and focused solely on her career. It wasn't that she hadn't tried to date, she had, but her busy schedule and high expectations often made it difficult to connect with anyone. And as the clock ticked on, Rachel began to question if she had missed out on the most important part of life: love. One evening, after an exhausting day at work, Rachel found herself at a networking event for young professionals in the city. It wasn't the type of event she usually enjoyed, but she knew it was important for her career. She had been encouraged to attend by a senior partner at her firm, who believed that networking outside of the office would give Rachel a competitive edge. So, despite her exhaustion, she put on her best smile and headed to the event. The event was held at a trendy rooftop bar in the heart of the city, filled with well-dressed professionals exchanging business cards and making small talk. Rachel stood at the bar, nursing a drink and trying to find someone to speak with when she noticed a man standing alone near the edge of the rooftop. He was tall, with dark hair and a calm demeanor that made him stand out from the crowd. He wasn't speaking to anyone, but he had an air of quiet confidence about him that caught Rachel's attention. Intrigued, Rachel decided to approach him. As she walked over, she couldn't help but notice the way he carried himself. Unlike many of the people at the event, he didn't seem desperate to impress anyone. Instead, he appeared comfortable in his own skin, standing with a sense of ease that intrigued her. "Hi," Rachel said as she approached. "I couldn't help but notice you standing here alone. I'm Rachel. Nice to meet you." The man turned to face her, a smile playing at the corners of his lips. "I'm Jack," he replied. "I'm just taking a break from all the noise inside." "It's nice to meet you, Rachel." They fell into easy conversation, talking about their respective careers, the city, and the event itself. Jack was a successful entrepreneur, a man who had built his own company from the ground up. His business had taken off in the tech industry, and now he was expanding into new markets. Despite his success, Jack didn't come off as arrogant or boastful. He was down-to-earth and humble, qualities Rachel admired but rarely encountered in her line of work. As they spoke, Rachel found herself opening up more than she usually did. She told Jack about her struggles with balancing her career and personal life, about how she often felt disconnected from her own emotions, consumed by the constant demands of her job. Jack listened intently, offering words of encouragement without judgment. He spoke about his own experiences with pressure and loneliness, revealing that, despite his professional success, He too had struggled to find a balance between work and personal happiness. Sometimes it feels like we're so focused on success that we forget what's really important, Jack said thoughtfully. We can lose ourselves in the pursuit of achievement and forget about the things that truly bring us joy. Rachel paused, considering his words. She had always believed that success was the ultimate goal, that everything else could wait. But Jack's words resonated with her in a way she hadn't expected. She realized that perhaps she had been chasing the wrong things all along. As the evening wore on, Rachel and Jack continued to talk, the connection between them growing stronger with every passing minute. It wasn't just their shared career struggles that bonded them. It was the realization that they both longed for something more than just professional accomplishments. They wanted fulfillment, love, and meaningful connections. Before the night ended, Jack asked Rachel if she would be interested in meeting up again. He suggested they grab dinner sometime and continue their conversation. Rachel, who had spent years resisting any kind of emotional connection, found herself agreeing without hesitation. For the first time in a long while, she felt excited about the prospect of something outside of work. Over the next few weeks, Rachel and Jack continued to see each other. Their connection deepened, and Rachel found herself feeling more alive than she had in years. She began to make time for their dates, prioritizing her personal life over her career, a decision that felt both terrifying and liberating. Jack's presence brought a sense of calm and happiness that Rachel had never experienced before, and she realized that she had been depriving herself of love for far too long. As their relationship grew, Rachel faced many of the same fears she had always had. Was she really ready to let go of her career-driven identity? Could she balance the demands of her job with a desire for a meaningful personal life? And most importantly, could she allow herself to fully love and be loved in return? Jack, for his part, was patient with Rachel's struggles. He never pushed her to make decisions she wasn't ready for, but he also made it clear that he saw a future with her. He wanted to build a life together, one where they both could pursue their passions and support each other in the process. With Jack, Rachel began to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have both love and success. They didn't have to be mutually exclusive. Eventually, Rachel made the choice to take a step back from the relentless drive that had defined her life for so long. She learned to let go of the fear of losing her career, realizing that true success wasn't just about climbing the corporate ladder. It was about finding happiness, balance, and the people who made life worth living. With Jack by her side, Rachel found the strength to embrace both love and ambition. And in doing so, she discovered that the life she had always dreamed was finally within her reach. In the end, Rachel learned that resilience doesn't just come from achieving professional goals. It comes from the courage to open your heart, to love without fear, and to embrace the unknown. Her journey wasn't just about finding success in her career. It was about finding fulfillment in every aspect of her life. And with Jack, she had found not only the love she had longed for, but also the resilience to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Ellie and Charles, a tale of love, family, and life's unexpected turns at 62, Ellie Johnson had lived a modest and fulfilling life. A retired schoolteacher from a small suburban town near New York, she spent her days tending to her grandchildren and volunteering at local charities. She had built a simple, yet content life, one filled with love for her family, but often, in the quiet of the night, she couldn't help but wonder if there was more to life than what she had known. She had always been the one to giving to her family, her students, her community, but what about herself? She had no idea that an encounter with a wealthy business tycoon would change her life forever. The meeting happened one evening at a gala hosted by the Walker family, one of New York's most prominent and wealthy families. The event, a charity fundraiser for underprivileged children, attracted the city's elite business moguls, politicians, and philanthropists. Ellie, though not part of that world, was there to support a cause she believed in deeply, and little did she know, this was the night her life would take a new direction. As Ellie navigated through the glamorous crowd, she happened upon Charles Walker, a 68-year-old millionaire who was known not only for his vast business empire, but also for his somewhat aloof and private nature. Charles had built his wealth from the ground up, creating a multi-billion-dollar corporation. But behind his polished exterior, he carried a deep sense of loneliness. His family was demanding, his social life filled with people who only wanted something from him, and he often felt like a pawn in a game that he no longer wanted to play. Their first interaction was far from a romantic encounter. Ellie, noticing that Charles was struggling in a conversation with a group of high-profile clients, decided to step in. With a witty remark and an air of calm assurance, she eased the tension and helped him navigate through the uncomfortable moment. This small act of kindness did not go unnoticed. Charles, typically surrounded by sycophants who only admired him for his wealth, was struck by Ellie's authenticity. She wasn't interested in his power or fortune. Instead, she was genuinely curious about who he was as a person. He asked her to join him for a drink after the event, and so began a friendship that would eventually turn into something much more. Over the next few weeks, their meetings grew more frequent. They shared stories of their lives, their joys, and their struggles. For Charles, Ellie was a breath of fresh air. She wasn't dazzled by his wealth, and in a world where everyone seemed to want something from him, Ellie's presence felt like a sanctuary. She was different from the women who had been part of his life before, women who were interested in his status, his money, and the life he could offer. Ellie, however, had built a life of her own. She had raised her children on her own, without much financial support, and while she appreciated the simple pleasures of life, she never longed for a lavish lifestyle. This authenticity and independence intrigued Charles. Ellie, on the other hand, had no illusions about her relationship with Charles. She wasn't looking for wealth or social status. She just wanted someone who would truly care for her, someone who appreciated the person she was, not the life she could offer. As they spent more time together, Ellie saw a side of Charles that no one else had ever witnessed. He was kind, thoughtful, and surprisingly vulnerable. The wealth and power that others saw as his identity were just facades that hid a man who, deep down, was tired of being alone. Despite the growing bond between them, the road to happiness was not easy. Charles's family, particularly his daughter Catherine Walker, disapproved of the relationship. Catherine, 40, was fiercely protective of her father and his wealth. She believed that her father deserved to be with someone of his own social standing, someone who could help maintain the family's prestigious reputation. Ellie, with her simple background, was not the ideal choice in Catherine's eyes. But Ellie wasn't one to back down easily. She had spent her life fighting for what she believed in, fighting for her children, fighting for her career, and now fighting for her relationship with Charles. She understood that love wasn't about wealth or status. It was about companionship, respect, and the willingness to be vulnerable with someone. But it wasn't just Catherine who stood in her way. The world of business and high society was foreign to Ellie, and she often felt like an outsider. She was thrust into a world of gala dinners, business meetings, and social expectations, all of which were a far cry from the quiet, humble life she was used to. Yet, with each passing day, Ellie grew more accustomed to Charles's world. She learned how to navigate the social intricacies and the pressures of being with someone so prominent. It was a steep learning curve, but Charles was there to guide her. As Ellie became more integrated into his life, she realized that her love for him was not just about what he could offer her, but about the man he was, his kindness, his generosity, and his willingness to open up to her in ways he had never done before. But as their relationship deepened, Ellie began to realize that being with Charles came at a price. The expectations from his family grew heavier, and the more they were together, the more she felt like a pawn in a game she wasn't prepared to play. Despite her growing love for Charles, Ellie started to question whether the life she had built for herself would be worth sacrificing for the sake of a relationship that seemed to carry so many obstacles. The turning point came when Ellie's mother, Martha, was diagnosed with a life-threatening illness. Ellie was faced with the difficult choice of caring for her ailing mother or pursuing her relationship with Charles. Her mother had always been her rock, and the thought of losing her was unbearable. As she navigated this emotional turmoil, Ellie found herself reflecting on the true meaning of love. She realized that her loyalty to her family, particularly her mother, had to come first. In the end, it wasn't the wealth or the prestige that mattered, it was the relationships and the people she held dear. But just as Ellie came to terms with her priorities, a crisis at Charles's company shook everything to its core. A major financial scandal threatened to unravel everything Charles had worked for. The weight of this crisis brought Ellie and Charles closer together. While others in his circle turned against him, Ellie stood by his side, offering support and love when he needed it most. Together, they weathered the storm, proving that love could withstand even the most challenging of circumstances. In the end, Ellie and Charles realized that their relationship was not about what they could give each other materially, but about the emotional support, the growth they experienced together, and the strength they found in each other. They understood that love, no matter how unconventional, was worth fighting for. It wasn't about fitting into a mold. It was about creating a life together that was true to who they were as individuals. Their story, one of love, family, and self-discovery, serves as a reminder that the best relationships are those built on understanding, respect, and the willingness to grow and change together. In a world that often places too much emphasis on wealth and status, Ellie and Charles found something far more valuable, a partnership grounded in genuine love and mutual support. And that, in the end, is the true treasure. Elisa and Ethan, a story of unlikely beginnings and unforeseen romance. Elisa Martin, a young and enthusiastic intern, had always dreamed of making a mark in the corporate world. With a degree from a reputable university and a hunger for success, she landed a coveted internship at Pfizer Enterprises, one of the most well-known companies in the business world. But she never expected her first day to be anything but ordinary. It was, however, anything but. Her first day in the office was far from the calm and professional introduction she had imagined. Elisa, known for her free-spirited nature and sharp wit, quickly found herself causing a bit of stir. As she entered the office, she was eager, excited, and perhaps a little too bold for the stiff atmosphere that surrounded her. She accidentally knocked over a pile of files while trying to introduce herself to some colleagues, which caused an uproar in the otherwise quiet office. But Elisa, ever the optimist, brushed off the mishap with a smile and a joke. Little did she know, her chaotic entrance had caught the attention of none other than Ethan Pfizer, the CEO of the company. Ethan, at 45 years old, was a man who had spent most of his life in the boardroom, making strategic decisions and building his empire. His demeanor was one of composure, and his sharp intelligence made him both revered and feared in the corporate world. For years, he had avoided getting emotionally involved with anyone. His focus was solely on growing his business, and his personal life had taken a back seat. But Elisa, with her carefree charm and unintentional chaos, was about to change that. At first, Ethan was taken aback by her antics. He was used to employees who knew how to behave with the utmost professionalism, but Elisa was different. She didn't fit into the mold he was accustomed to. While others would have been embarrassed by the mistakes she made on her first day, Elisa embraced them, laughing at herself and making others laugh along with her. It was a refreshing change for Ethan, who found himself intrigued by this young woman who didn't take herself too seriously. The two began to interact more frequently, and Ethan found himself increasingly captivated by Elisa's quirky personality. She had a way of making everything feel lighter and more fun, and in a world where business decisions were often weighed down by stress and pressure, this was something Ethan sorely needed. Yet, despite the budding attraction, Ethan tried to remain professional. After all, as the CEO, getting involved with an intern was not only unprofessional, but also risky. But no matter how hard he tried to maintain a distance, Elisa's charm and energy made it impossible to ignore. One day, during a particularly stressful meeting, Elisa's bright, positive energy broke through the tension in the room. She made a comment that lightened the mood, and before anyone knew it, the entire team was laughing. Ethan, who had always kept a serious face during meetings, couldn't help but smile. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he could relax. Elisa's ability to bring humor into even the most serious situations was something that Ethan hadn't realized he needed, and he began to wonder what it would be like to spend more time with her outside the confines of the office. As weeks passed, their relationship began to evolve. Elisa's infectious energy was impossible to resist, and soon she became more than just an intern to Ethan. They started spending time together outside of work, going for coffee, and even attending a few company events. Ethan, despite his best efforts to keep things professional, began to look forward to these moments with her. And Elisa, for her part, began to see Ethan in a different light. Behind the tough, business-minded exterior, she saw a man who was driven, passionate, and surprisingly vulnerable. However, as their connection deepened, Elisa found herself torn. She knew the risks of getting involved with her boss, especially someone as important as Ethan Pfizer. There are the obvious concerns: office gossip, professional boundaries, and the potential for scandal. But there was also something deeper at play. Elisa had always been independent, and she feared that entering into a relationship with Ethan might compromise her own dreams and ambitions. She had worked too hard to get where she was, and she didn't want to lose herself in someone else's world, no matter how enticing that world might be. For Ethan, the situation was equally complicated. He had spent his entire life focused on building his empire, and for the first time, he found himself torn between his career and his personal desires. He knew that getting involved with Elisa would create a stir in the office, and it would undoubtedly make things more complicated. But despite these risks, he couldn't shake the feeling that she was the missing piece of his life. Elisa brought out a side of him that he hadn't seen in years, the side that was capable of enjoying life, of laughing at himself, and of letting go of the constant pressure to succeed. One evening, after a long day at work, Ethan finally made a decision. He invited Elisa to dinner at a quiet restaurant. As they sat across from each other, the air was filled with an unspoken tension. Ethan knew he couldn't deny his feelings any longer, but he wasn't sure if Elisa felt the same way. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady, but his heart was racing. "Elisa," he began, "I know this isn't easy, and I know that we both have a lot to lose. But I can't ignore what's been happening between us. I care about you, and I think you might feel the same." Elisa looked at him for a long moment, her eyes searching his face for any signs of insincerity. She had always been able to read people well, and she knew that Ethan wasn't saying this lightly. "I do care about you, Ethan," she replied softly, "but I'm scared of what it could mean for both of us. I've worked so hard to get where I am, and I don't want to jeopardize that." Ethan nodded, understanding her fear. "I'm not asking you to give up your dreams, but I don't want to let you go. I want to see where this can go without any expectations, without any pressure, just us figuring things out together." Elisa was quiet for a moment, considering his words. And in that moment, she realized that she didn't have to choose between her career and love. Maybe, just maybe, she could have both. She reached across the table and took Ethan's hand. "Okay," she said, her voice full of resolve. "Let's see where this goes." From that moment on, Elisa and Ethan's relationship blossomed. They faced challenges, of course, office rumors, the ever-present pressure of being in a relationship at work, and the doubts that crept into their minds. But with each passing day, they learned to navigate these obstacles together. Their bond grew stronger, and with it, Elisa began to realize that the path she had been so afraid to walk might actually be the one that led her to true happiness. Eventually, Elisa's time as an intern came to an end, but her journey with Ethan was only just beginning. Ethan proposed to her in a quiet, intimate moment, and they married soon after. Together, they continued to build their lives, both in the boardroom and in their personal lives. And as they grew together, they found that love like success was something that could be achieved with hard work, trust, and the willingness to take risks. Their story serves as a reminder that love can happen when you least expect it, and sometimes the most unlikely of people can teach you the most important lessons about life, love, and what it truly means to take a chance on someone. A leap of faith. From a corporate rival to a lifelong partner, Megan Turner had spent years building a career in one of the most competitive industries in the country, finance. At 32, she had already climbed the corporate ladder, earning the respect of her peers and superiors. She was driven, focused, and determined to achieve the kind of success that would leave her mark on the world. Her work ethic was unmatched, and she had earned the title of senior investment manager at a prestigious firm in downtown Chicago. But despite her impressive career and financial independence, there was one thing that Megan felt she lacked: love. Megan had always been skeptical about relationships. The idea of juggling love and work seemed impossible to her. In a world where ambition was the ultimate goal, she had convinced herself that personal relationships were an unnecessary distraction. She had briefly entertained the idea of dating in the past, but each time, her work always came first. She believed that if she just kept pushing forward, success in her career would fill the emptiness she felt in her personal life. But as time passed, she couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that something was missing. It wasn't until she met someone completely unexpected that Megan began to question her beliefs about love and work. The man who would challenge her worldview was none other than Nate Harris, a young, ambitious entrepreneur who had recently started a tech company that was making waves in the business world. Nate had been invited to give a keynote speech at a conference Megan was attending, and as someone who was always eager to stay ahead of industry trends, she decided to attend. From the moment Nate took the stage, Megan found herself captivated. His energy, his passion for innovation, and his bold vision for the future were all qualities she admired. He spoke with a level of confidence and charisma that was hard to ignore, but what really drew Megan in was his authenticity. He wasn't just another corporate mogul spouting the usual jargon. He was someone who genuinely cared about making a difference. As he talked about his experiences building his company from the ground up, Megan could relate to the challenges he faced, the sacrifices he had made, and the passion that drove him to succeed. It was rare to see someone so real in an industry that often prioritized appearances over substance. After the speech, Megan found herself standing near the stage, still processing what she had just heard. To her surprise, Nate walked over to her, a warm smile on his face. "You look like you have some thoughts about what I just said," he said, his voice friendly but confident. "Would you like to grab a coffee and discuss it?" Megan, always the professional, was initially hesitant. She wasn't accustomed to mixing business with personal connections, especially with someone who was both a competitor and a potential partner in the business world. But there was something about Nate that intrigued her. He wasn't like the other people. She worked with the ones who were all about making deals and climbing the ladder. He seemed to value connection and meaningful conversation, and that was something Megan hadn't realized she'd been missing. Over coffee, Megan and Nate found themselves diving into deep discussions about business, innovation, and the future of their respective industries. What started as a casual conversation quickly turned into an engaging exchange of ideas. Nate's perspective on entrepreneurship and leadership resonated with Megan, and she realized that, despite their differences in age and background, they shared a similar vision for success, one that didn't just involve financial gain, but the opportunity to make a real impact on the world. As the conversation continued, Megan began to let her guard down. She started to see Nate not just as a successful entrepreneur, but as someone who shared her values and passions. He listened intently, challenged her ideas in a way that made her think critically, and made her laugh in a way that felt genuine. For the first time in a long while, Megan felt herself becoming emotionally engaged in a conversation that wasn't about work or competition. She realized that maybe there was room for love in her life after all. In the weeks that followed, Megan and Nate continued to meet. Their professional discussions turned into more personal conversations as they explored their mutual interests outside of work. They went to concerts, shared meals at their favorite restaurants, and enjoyed long walks around the city, where they could talk about anything and everything. Megan found herself looking forward to their time together, and as much as she tried to deny it, she realized that her feelings for Nate were growing stronger with each passing day. One evening, after a particularly successful business dinner, Nate took Megan aside. The evening air was cool, and the city lights cast a soft glow on the street as they walked together. Megan had always been used to being in control of her emotions, but tonight, something was different. She could feel the tension between them, a quiet acknowledgement that something deeper was unfolding. "Nate," Megan began, her voice hesitant, "I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I've spent so much time focusing on my career that I've convinced myself that I don't need anything else. But I can't ignore the way I feel when I'm with you. I didn't expect this, and I'm not sure I'm ready for a relationship. I've always put my career first, and I don't know how to balance that with something more personal. Nate stopped walking and turned to face her. His eyes softened as he reached for her hand. "Megan," he said gently, "I get it. I've been there too. But sometimes, life has a way of surprising us. What I've learned is that you don't have to choose between love and success. You can have both, as long as you're willing to be open to it. I'm not asking you to change who you are or the things that matter to you. But I believe that we can support each other, grow together, and achieve even greater things as a team." His words struck a chord with Megan. She had spent so long thinking that success had to come at the expense of personal happiness. But here was someone who saw the possibility of balance. Nate wasn't asking her to give up her dreams. He was offering to share them with her. In that moment, Megan made a decision. She would take a leap of faith. She would open her heart to something she had been avoiding for so long. She realized that love wasn't a distraction from her career, it was a source of strength, a partnership that could propel her forward in ways she had never imagined. Over the next few months, Megan and Nate's relationship flourished. They supported each other in their careers, celebrated each other's successes, and faced challenges together. Megan learned that she didn't have to sacrifice her ambitions to have a fulfilling relationship. In fact, her partnership with Nate only made her more focused, more determined, and more resilient. In the end, Megan discovered that love was not something to be feared or postponed. It was something that could enhance every aspect of her life, personal and professional. With Nate by her side, she felt more confident, more grounded, and ready to take on whatever challenges the future had in store. Together, they proved that success wasn't just about individual achievement, it was about building something meaningful together, with love as the foundation. The unlikely path to love. From adversity to commitment at 28, Vanessa Miller had already achieved a great deal. As a top-tier architect at a renowned firm in New York City, she was known for her impeccable designs and her strong leadership. She had worked hard for every accomplishment, often putting in long hours to ensure that her projects not only met but exceeded the expectations of her clients. She had climbed the ranks, securing a solid reputation in her field. Yet, despite her professional success, Vanessa often found herself struggling with feelings of loneliness. Vanessa's life was so busy that she barely had time for anything other than work. She had always put her career first, thinking that success in the workplace would ultimately bring her happiness. But as the years went by, she found herself questioning this. Where was her personal life? Was it too late to find love? Romance had never been her focus. There had always been something more urgent. The next project, the next deadline, the next step in her career. She had made peace with being single, convincing herself that her independence and ambition were enough. But deep down, she couldn't help but feel that something was missing. That feeling intensified one fateful day when Vanessa's firm partnered with a local construction company on a major project. The project, a new office tower that would change the skyline of New York, was important to everyone involved. It was the kind of opportunity that could define careers. But what Vanessa didn't expect was that it would also change her life in ways she couldn't foresee. The construction company was run by Lucas Davis, a man who had been in the business for years. At 35, Lucas had seen it all from the highs of successful projects to the lows of unexpected setbacks. He had built his company from the ground up, and now it was one of the most respected in the industry. However, what stood out the most about Lucas wasn't just his business acumen. It was his approach to leadership. Unlike many of his peers, Lucas wasn't driven by ego. He was calm, thoughtful, and deeply invested in the well-being of his team. He valued integrity over profits and always sought out solutions that were in the best interest of everyone involved. When Vanessa and Lucas met for the first time, it was clear that they were both professionals with a shared goal. But there was an immediate, undeniable chemistry between them. While they maintained a professional demeanor, there was an unspoken connection that neither could ignore. They found themselves in meetings together more often than expected, discussing the project's progress and the details that needed attention. What started as polite exchanges quickly turned into more meaningful conversations. Vanessa was surprised by how easy it was to talk to Lucas. He didn't try to impress her with grand gestures or empty words, he simply listened. There was a quiet confidence about him, a humility that set him apart from the typical corporate figure. As their conversations continued, Vanessa found herself drawn to his perspective on life. He didn't just see success as a measure of wealth or power. He saw it as a way to create lasting impact and improve the world around him. It was a refreshing approach, and one that aligned with her own values more than she had expected. As they worked together on the project, Vanessa began to notice that she was thinking about Lucas outside of work. She caught herself smiling when she saw a text from him on her phone, and she found herself anticipating their meetings. But what surprised her the most was how much she enjoyed spending time with him, even outside the context of the project. They had lunch together, discussing everything from architecture to their favorite books, and sometimes even their childhoods. It was during one of these lunches that Lucas surprised Vanessa. After they had spent over an hour talking about a new design trend, he turned to her with a slight smile. "Vanessa, I have to confess something," he said, his voice calm but sincere. "I've been working in this industry for a long time, and I've met a lot of people. But there's something different about you. You see the world in a way that most people don't, and I admire that." Vanessa was taken aback. She wasn't used to compliments, especially not from someone she respected so much. "Thank you, Lucas," she said, her voice soft but grateful. "That means a lot coming from you." They sat in silence for a moment, the connection between them deepening. For the first time in years, Vanessa felt her heart stir in a way it hadn't in a long time. It wasn't just admiration she felt for Lucas, it was something more. As the weeks went by, their relationship evolved from professional respect to something far more personal. Lucas was patient, never pushing her beyond what she was comfortable with. He understood the pressure she faced at work and respected her boundaries. But the more they spent time together, the more Vanessa found herself falling for him. She realized that her fears about love, about whether she was ready or whether she could balance it with her career, were starting to fade. Lucas made her feel safe, not only in the professional world, but in her personal life as well. One evening, after the successful completion of a critical phase in the project, Lucas took Vanessa to dinner at a small, intimate restaurant. Over wine and appetizers, he looked at her with genuine affection and said, "Vanessa, I know we've been focused on this project, but I have to ask, what about us? Where do you see this going?" Vanessa's heart raced. She had never allowed herself to get this close to someone before, but something about Lucas made her believe that love didn't have to be a distraction. It could be a source of strength. She took a deep breath, deciding to take the leap. "I see this going somewhere good, Lucas. Somewhere real." From that moment, they began to build something truly special. Their relationship was grounded in mutual respect, shared values, and a deep emotional connection. Lucas didn't expect Vanessa to put her career on hold for love, and Vanessa didn't expect Lucas to put his business second. They supported each other's dreams and ambitions, understanding that their personal connection would only make them stronger in both their careers and their personal lives. Months passed, and as the project was finally completed, Vanessa and Lucas found themselves not just as business partners, but as life partners. Together, they proved that it was possible to have both love and success, to balance ambition with affection. In the end, their story was one of resilience, two people who had built their careers from the ground up, but who realized that the true foundation of their success wasn't just the work they did, it was the love they shared. When Love Knocks, a journey of trust, change, and unlikely beginnings at 35, Grace Thompson had built a life many would envy. A high-powered lawyer in one of New York City's most prestigious firms, Grace had worked tirelessly to climb the corporate ladder, often sacrificing her personal life in the process. She had little time for hobbies or social activities and had even become distant from her family, choosing to focus solely on her work. For Grace, success wasn't just a goal, it was a way of life, and she prided herself on her independence and self-sufficiency. However, despite her professional accomplishments, Grace couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. She had spent years building her career, always determined to be the best. Yet, the more successful she became, the more disconnected she felt from the rest of the world. Relationships seemed like an inconvenience. Her friends had long since given up on convincing her to go out or meet new people. She would respond with the same excuse, "I'm too busy." But deep down, she began to wonder whether this constant hustle for success was worth the emotional isolation. Grace had never been one to fall for the idea of love at first sight. In fact, she had convinced herself that it was simply an illusion, a fairy tale, for people who had the luxury of time to think about such things. But everything changed the day she met Ethan Rivers. Ethan was a new client at her law firm, a successful entrepreneur who had recently sold his tech company for a substantial amount of money. Unlike most of Grace's clients, who were seasoned corporate giants, Ethan was relatively young and unassuming. He wasn't the kind of person who showed up with an entourage or the usual airs of a wealthy businessman. Instead, he came to the firm quietly, with a calm, grounded presence that immediately caught Grace's attention. He had a way of listening, really listening, that made people feel valued. He wasn't just interested in getting his case settled. He was interested in the people around him. Their first meeting was anything but typical. Ethan's case was straightforward enough, but it was the way he communicated that made it different. Grace had become accustomed to the usual rush of corporate speak, the constant pressure to get things done quickly. But with Ethan, everything slowed down. His approach was simple, thoughtful, and he seemed genuinely interested in her opinion. For the first time in a long while, Grace found herself drawn to someone not just because of his success, but because of his authenticity. Over the following weeks, Grace and Ethan's meetings became more frequent. They worked together on his case, discussing legal matters in the office, but slowly their conversations expanded to include their personal lives. Ethan, despite his fortune, had a surprisingly humble lifestyle. He wasn't interested in flashy cars or designer suits. Instead, he spent his time volunteering at local charities, mentoring young entrepreneurs, and focusing on how he could make a difference in the world. His perspective on life intrigued Grace. She had spent so many years chasing corporate success that she had forgotten what it meant to live for something more than herself. One evening, after a particularly long day of work, Grace was heading home when she received a call from Ethan. He had just wrapped up a project and wanted to thank her for her hard work. His voice on the other end of the phone was warm and genuine, and it immediately put her at ease. "I know you're probably exhausted, but I was wondering if you'd like to grab a bite to eat?" Ethan asked. Grace hesitated for a moment. She had grown accustomed to spending her evenings alone, catching up on emails or preparing for the next day. But something about Ethan's invitation felt different, like an opportunity to step outside her usual routine. After a few seconds of contemplation, she finally agreed. They met at a small Italian restaurant in the city, one of Ethan's favorites. Over pasta and wine, their conversation flowed effortlessly. They talked about their careers, their pasts, and their dreams for the future. Grace found herself laughing more that evening than she had in months, surprised at how natural and easy it was to be around Ethan. She realized that she hadn't just been missing a relationship, she had been missing connection. As the evening wore on, Ethan looked at her with a sincerity that made Grace's heart race. "I know you've worked hard to get where you are, Grace," he said, "but I also know that there's more to life than just working nonstop. I think you deserve to be happy, truly happy." Grace was taken aback. No one had ever said something like that to her before, and she wasn't sure how to respond. She had always believed that happiness came from success, from achieving her goals and pushing through the tough times. But now, sitting across from Ethan, she couldn't help but question everything she had been so sure about. Their relationship slowly deepened as the weeks turned into months. They spent time together whenever they could, enjoying the simplicity of each other's company. Grace found herself opening up in ways she had never done before. Ethan wasn't just a partner in business. He became a partner in life, someone she could lean on and trust. She began to make room for him in her world, something she never thought possible. But even as her feelings for Ethan grew, Grace was still hesitant to fully commit. She had spent so many years building walls around her heart that it was difficult to let someone else in. She was afraid of losing herself, of putting her career on hold, and of allowing someone else to have that much influence over her life. One evening, as they sat together on a park bench, watching the sunset, Ethan reached for her hand. "Grace," he said softly, "I've come to realize that love isn't about sacrificing who you are. It's about growing together, supporting each other in our dreams. You don't have to choose between success and love. You can have both." His words hit her like a ton of bricks. For the first time, she saw a future where she didn't have to choose between her career and a personal life. She could have both, and with Ethan, it felt like she finally understood what true balance meant. In the months that followed, Grace allowed herself to be vulnerable. She learned to trust Ethan, to lean on him when she needed support, and to embrace the joy that came with sharing her life with someone else. Together, they built a partnership grounded in love, respect, and understanding. Grace discovered that love wasn't a distraction from her success. It was a source of strength that helped her be better in every aspect of her life. Ultimately, Grace's journey wasn't just about finding love, it was about finding herself. In Ethan, she found a partner who made her believe that she could have it all: a fulfilling career, a loving relationship, and a life of meaning. And as they moved forward together, hand in hand, Grace realized that love had always been the missing piece to her success, and that sometimes the greatest achievements in life aren't the ones we chase, they're the ones that find us when we least expect it. A leap of faith, from rivalry to romance in the corporate world at 30, Claire Davidson had built an impressive career. As a successful marketing director at a leading firm in Chicago, she was no stranger to competition. Claire was sharp, ambitious, and focused. Her reputation for leading successful campaigns had earned her the respect of her colleagues and the envy of her peers. She was proud of her achievements, but there was one thing Claire hadn't quite figured out: how to balance her demanding career with love. Relationships had always seemed like a luxury Claire couldn't afford. She believed that in order to be successful, she had to put her personal life on hold. She'd always admired those who could juggle both work and romance, but in Claire's mind, it simply wasn't possible. Love required time, attention, and energy, things she simply didn't have in abundance. Claire's life revolved around deadlines, meetings, and presentations. But all of that changed when her firm started working on a new project that would ultimately alter the course of her life. This project was high stakes, designed to elevate the firm's status in the industry, and Claire was given the responsibility of managing it. What she didn't anticipate, however, was that she would have to collaborate with someone she considered her biggest rival, James Parker. James was a senior partner at another competing firm, a man known for his intelligence and ruthless approach to business. He had a reputation for winning, no matter the cost. His firm had been Claire's top competitor for years, and while they hadn't directly clashed until now, she had always considered him a formidable adversary. What surprised Claire, however, was how her view of James began to change as they worked together. The project required a joint effort between their two firms, and their paths crossed regularly. James wasn't the arrogant, dismissive type she had assumed him to be. In fact, he was surprisingly approachable and easy to talk to. He listened attentively to her ideas, valued her input, and never dismissed her because of their competition. Their working relationship, initially built on professionalism and mutual respect, soon grew into something more. One evening, after an exhausting day of meetings, Claire and James found themselves alone in the office, reviewing the final details of their campaign. The office was quieter than usual, and the tension that had once existed between them had melted away. James looked at Claire, a slight smile on his face. "You know," he said, "I've always respected you. I never realized how much we have in common until we started working together." Claire, who had always thought of James as a competitor, was taken aback. "I never thought I'd hear you say that," she replied with a smirk. "I've always seen you as the enemy, to be honest." James chuckled. "I guess it's easy to think that when you're on opposite sides. But now that we're working side by side, I'm starting to see things differently." Claire raised an eyebrow. "So what are you saying? That you're not the ruthless competitor everyone says you are?" James leaned back in his chair, his gaze thoughtful. I've been competitive, sure, but that doesn't mean I don't appreciate good work when I see it. And trust me, you're one of the best in the business. It's not about winning at any cost. It's about finding a way to succeed together. For the first time, Claire saw James in a new light. His sincerity, combined with his sharp intellect, made him someone she respected, and not just as a colleague, but as a person. Over the course of the next few weeks, they continued to collaborate, and their professional admiration began to evolve into a personal connection. One night, after a particularly long week of work, Claire and James went out for drinks to unwind. They found themselves sitting at a quiet bar, sharing stories and laughing. Claire had always kept her personal life private, but she found herself opening up to James in a way she hadn't with anyone else. She talked about her childhood, her career ambitions, and the challenges she faced in trying to balance everything. James listened intently, offering thoughtful advice and encouragement. "You know," James said after a pause, "you're more than just a marketing director. You're someone who genuinely cares about the work you do. I think that's what makes you so successful." Claire, who had always believed that her success was purely a result of hard work and determination, found herself surprised by James's words. She had never allowed herself to be vulnerable, always presenting herself as the strong, independent professional. But with James, she felt safe, seen, and understood. As the evening wore on, Claire couldn't help but notice how easy it was to be with James. He wasn't the cutthroat businessman she had imagined. Instead, he was kind, thoughtful, and patient. There was something about him that made her feel more at ease than she had in years. For the first time in a long time, Claire found herself not just appreciating someone professionally, but also personally. It wasn't long before their connection deepened. Claire and James spent more time together, both professionally and socially. They discussed ideas, debated strategies, and learned more about each other's backgrounds. Their chemistry was undeniable, but neither of them had made a move until one night, after celebrating the successful completion of their project, when James leaned in and kissed Claire. The kiss was slow and deliberate, filled with years of unspoken emotions. Claire, initially caught off guard, soon found herself responding with equal intensity. In that moment, the boundaries between professional and personal blurred, and Claire realized that she had been wrong to dismiss the possibility of love. As their relationship blossomed, Claire found herself not only falling for James, but also rediscovering the joy of life outside of work. She began to embrace the balance between her career and personal life, realizing that love didn't need to be a distraction, it could be a powerful motivator, driving her to be better in both her professional and personal endeavors. James, too, found that working alongside someone he respected and cared for gave him a newfound perspective on success. In the end, Claire and James proved that sometimes love is not an obstacle to success. Instead, it is a catalyst for growth. As they continued to work together, their partnership, both personal and professional, became a testament to the power of collaboration, mutual respect, and trust. Love and Redemption, a tale of transformation and trust. Lena Harrison, a 32-year-old investment banker, had always been driven. For years, she had worked tirelessly to climb to the top of the corporate ladder, constantly pushing herself harder to secure her place in a competitive world. Raised by a single mother in a modest neighborhood, Lena had always felt the pressure to prove herself. Success wasn't just a goal, it was her way of asserting her worth. Her dedication and unyielding work ethic had led her to an enviable position as a senior analyst at a prestigious investment firm. Despite her professional achievements, Lena's personal life was another story. The long hours, constant pressure, and high expectations from her career left little room for relationships. She had few friends and even fewer romantic connections. Her world revolved around spreadsheets, meetings, and financial projections. Lena had convinced herself that this was enough. She had sacrificed her personal happiness for her career and told herself that she was content. She had to be content. Anything else would be a distraction. But deep down, a part of her longed for something more, someone to share her life with, someone to show her that there was more to life than just work. Enter Darren Matthews, a man whose presence was as enigmatic as it was captivating. At 38, Darren had built a successful real estate empire from scratch. His rise to power had been marked by shrewd business moves and an ability to read people with unmatched precision. On the surface, he seemed like the ideal businessman, charismatic, sharp, and decisive. But behind the polished exterior was a man who had endured his own set of personal challenges. Darren had never been one to chase after fame or fortune. He had grown up in a rough part of Chicago and had seen the dark side of ambition early on. After a turbulent past filled with mistakes, regrets, and a broken marriage, Darren had spent years rebuilding his life. He had learned the hard way that success meant little without integrity, and he had worked diligently to redeem himself. But love? That was something Darren had long given up on. He had become too focused on his work to think about relationships, and after his previous heartbreaks, he wasn't sure he could trust again. Fate, however, had other plans. When Darren's real estate firm partnered with Lena's investment bank on a high-profile commercial development project, their paths inevitably crossed. Initially, their interactions were purely professional, brief exchanges about the project's progress, discussions about deadlines, and occasional meetings to iron out details. But there was something about Lena that Darren couldn't quite shake. She was intelligent, confident, and fiercely independent, qualities he admired but also found intimidating. What surprised him more was her vulnerability, hidden beneath her polished exterior. Lena, too, found herself intrigued by Darren. He wasn't like the other wealthy businessmen she was accustomed to working with. There was something genuine about him, an authenticity that made her want to get to know him beyond the boardroom. As their partnership deepened, so did their connection. The conversations that started as business discussions soon became personal, touching on their childhoods, their dreams, and the challenges they had faced along the way. They discovered that they shared more in common than they ever expected, both driven by their past, but determined to build better futures. It was during one of their late-night meetings, after the office had emptied and the city's lights cast a soft glow through the windows, that the walls between them began to crumble. They were discussing the finer points of the project when Darren suddenly stopped and looked at Lena with a contemplative expression. "You know," Darren said, his voice softer than usual, "I never thought I'd meet someone like you." Lena looked up, surprised by the change in tone. "What do you mean?" she asked, genuinely curious. "I've spent so much time focused on work, on building my empire, that I forgot what it's like to connect with someone on a real level," Darren confessed. "You made me feel like I can trust again. You made me realize that success isn't everything." Lena's heart skipped a beat. She had always guarded herself against vulnerability, especially in the workplace, but Darren's words touched something deep within her. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to admit the truth that she was tired of being alone, of burying her feelings behind work. Over the coming weeks, their professional relationship continued to evolve, but it was clear that something more was developing. They began to spend more time together outside of the office, getting to know each other beyond their respective careers. What started as casual dinners turned into shared weekends, filled with laughter, conversation, and quiet moments that spoke volumes. Lena realized that her fear of opening up had kept her from experiencing the kind of deep connection she now shared with Darren. But despite their growing affection for each other, both of them struggled with the idea of fully committing. Lena was afraid of losing herself in a relationship, of repeating the mistakes her parents had made. She had watched them sacrifice everything for the sake of their careers, only to end up disconnected and unhappy. Darren, too, was hesitant. He had learned the hard way that love could be fragile, and he was afraid of repeating his past mistakes. Their turning point came one evening when Lena, after a particularly difficult day at work, found herself sitting in Darren's office, exhausted both physically and emotionally. Darren had noticed her distress and, without hesitation, pulled her into his arms. "You don't have to carry the weight of the world alone, Lena," he whispered. "Let me in. Let me help you." And in that moment, Lena realized that love wasn't about control or perfection. It was about trust, vulnerability, and the willingness to let someone else in. She didn't have to choose between her career and a relationship. She could have both. And with Darren, she felt empowered to live a life filled with love, ambition, and fulfillment. As their relationship deepened, Lena and Darren found themselves building something extraordinary both personally and professionally. They proved that two people, both with complex pasts and strong ambitions, could find balance in each other. And in doing so, they not only discovered love, but also found a renewed sense of purpose. In the end, Lena and Darren's story was one of transformation. Two people who had once been wary of love, but who found redemption and strength in each other's arms. Their journey was a reminder that success isn't just about what we achieve. It's about who we become along the way and the connections we make that define us. The unlikely journey of love and ambition. Samantha Clark had always been the picture of success. At 33, she was a rising star in the world of tech entrepreneurship. After years of hard work, late nights, and countless sacrifices, she had built her own software company from the ground up. Known for her brilliant mind and relentless determination, Samantha had earned the respect of her peers in an industry dominated by men. But there was one area of her life that had eluded her love. Despite her professional success, Samantha found herself constantly feeling isolated. Her days were consumed with deadlines, business meetings, and strategic planning, leaving little time for anything else. She had built an empire, but her personal life felt like an empty void. Having grown up in a modest neighborhood, Samantha was no stranger to hard work. Her parents had always emphasized the importance of education and ambition, teaching her that success came from dedication and perseverance. Her father, a mechanic, and her mother, a nurse, had always made sure she had everything she needed to pursue her dreams. But the pursuit of those dreams had come at a personal cost. While her parents had supported her every step of the way, they also wanted to see her find happiness, not just success. Samantha had been so consumed with her career that she never really thought about love or family. She'd convinced herself that she was too busy, that love was a distraction until she met him. Liam Taylor, a 35-year-old entrepreneur with a reputation for being a maverick in the world of finance, was everything Samantha wasn't. Where she was calculated and strategic, Liam was impulsive and full of charm. His path to success had been less conventional, and his easygoing personality made him a popular figure in both business and social circles. His company, a leading venture capital firm, had grown rapidly, making him one of the most sought-after investors in the country. While Samantha focused on building her business with meticulous precision, Liam thrived in the world of high-risk ventures, taking chances that often paid off big. Their first encounter was accidental, an industry networking event that neither of them had particularly wanted to attend. Samantha had arrived to meet potential investors, but as she stepped into the room, she was immediately drawn into a conversation with Liam. He was charismatic, charming, and completely unbothered by the high-stakes atmosphere. While Samantha was calculating the best way to pitch her latest project, Liam was talking about everything but business. I know. We're all here to make money, Liam said with a grin. But isn't it interesting how we can get so caught up in that we forget the bigger picture? Like, what's the point of all this if we don't find a way to actually enjoy life? Samantha, initially taken aback by his casual approach, felt a sudden tension between their worlds. She had always prided herself on her focus, but here was Liam, someone who seemed to be having fun without taking anything too seriously. It was both frustrating and intriguing at the same time. Over the next few months, their paths crossed again and again, each encounter leaving Samantha more conflicted. Despite her initial resistance, she found herself drawn to Liam's free-spirited nature, while also respecting his business acumen. They began to spend more time together, having lunch after meetings or grabbing drinks after work. Their conversations were a mix of intellectual debates and casual banter. And over time, Samantha began to open up in a way she hadn't with anyone in years. One evening, after a particularly long work day, they found themselves sitting at a rooftop bar, watching the sunset over the city skyline. Samantha, her shoulders finally relaxed after a long week, took a deep breath and turned to Liam. You know, you're right, she admitted. I've been so focused on my company, I've forgotten what it's like to actually enjoy life. I've let it consume me. Liam smiled gently. It's easy to do, but there's more to life than the bottom line, Samantha. Sometimes the best investments we make are in the people around us. The connections, the relationships, the experiences. Samantha looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. She had spent so much of her life building walls around her heart, believing that love was a luxury she couldn't afford. But here, sitting across from Liam, she realized that perhaps she had been wrong all along. She had been so focused on achieving success that she had forgotten to live. As their relationship began to blossom, Samantha found herself reevaluating her priorities. She didn't have to choose between her career and love. Instead, she began to see how both could work together. Liam's influence allowed her to slow down and appreciate the simple pleasures of life, while her drive and determination helped him see the value in hard work and stability. Together, they complemented each other in ways neither of them had expected. However, their relationship wasn't without its challenges. Samantha's intense work ethic often led her to bury herself in her projects, sometimes neglecting her personal life. Liam, on the other hand, was more spontaneous, sometimes leaving her feeling like he didn't understand the pressure she faced as a business owner. There were moments of tension, especially when Samantha felt that Liam didn't take her ambitions seriously. But as they learned to navigate each other's worlds, they also discovered the importance of compromise. Samantha's journey was not just about finding love. It was about learning to trust, to open her heart, and to let go of the fear of vulnerability. It was about realizing that success in business didn't have to come at the cost of personal happiness. With Liam, she found a partner who not only supported her career ambitions, but also reminded her of the importance of enjoying the journey. In the end, Samantha's story wasn't just about building a successful business. It was about building a life, one that included love, happiness, and the freedom to embrace the unknown. As her relationship with Liam deepened, she found herself stepping into a new chapter of her life, one where success was no longer defined by financial gain, but by the quality of the connection she made and the happiness she found along the way. A journey of resilience and redemption. Isabella Martinez was no stranger to adversity. At 28, she had already faced more challenges than most people would in a lifetime. Growing up in a rough neighborhood in New York City, Isabella had learned early on that the world wasn't always kind. Her parents, immigrants who worked tirelessly to provide for their family, had instilled in her a strong work ethic. But despite their sacrifices, Isabella often found herself battling not only financial struggles, but also societal expectations that seemed designed to hold her back. Her ambition was fierce. From a young age, Isabella had been determined to break the cycle of poverty. She excelled in school, earning a scholarship to attend a prestigious university where she studied business. But even in this new environment, she felt the weight of being an outsider. It wasn't just the financial strain that came with being a student from a modest background. It was the constant need to prove that she belonged in a world dominated by privilege and connections. After graduating with honors, Isabella landed a job at a top financial firm. However, her experience in the corporate world wasn't as glamorous as she had imagined. The hours were long, the pressure was unrelenting, and the competition was fierce. It seemed that no matter how hard she worked, she was always trying to catch up to her colleagues who came from wealthier, more established families. Still, Isabella persevered. She wasn't the type to back down from a challenge. She had come too far to let her circumstances define her. But it wasn't just her professional life that had been shaped by struggle. Isabella had faced personal battles too. She had lost her father to cancer when she was just 16, and the pain of that loss had stayed with her. Despite her mother's best efforts, Isabella had never truly been able to heal from the grief. She poured herself into her work, using it as a distraction from the emotions she had never fully confronted. As the years passed, Isabella's determination to succeed only grew stronger. She was quickly climbing the ranks at her firm, gaining recognition for her innovative ideas and strategic thinking. But success, as she would soon learn, came at a cost. The more she focused on her career, the more she pushed away the people who cared about her. Friends became distant, relationships grew strained, and Isabella found herself increasingly isolated. It was during this time that she met David Allen, a successful entrepreneur who had made a name for himself in the tech industry. David was different from the men she had met in the corporate world. He wasn't driven by status or wealth. He was passionate about innovation and making a difference. Isabella met David at a conference, and their connection was immediate. He admired her ambition and resilience, while she found his calm demeanor and genuine interest in people refreshing. David was patient with her, never pushing her to open up but always offering a listening ear. They began spending more time together, and soon, Isabella found herself confiding in him in ways she never had with anyone else. She told him about her father's death, the pain she had carried for years, and the loneliness that seemed to follow her despite her professional success. David listened without judgment, offering comfort and support in a way that Isabella had never experienced. For the first time in years, Isabella allowed herself to be vulnerable. She let down the wall she had built around her heart, and in doing so, she began to heal. David didn't offer empty platitudes or try to fix her problems. Instead, he simply stood by her, offering a safe space where she could process her emotions at her own pace. Over time, their friendship blossomed into something deeper. What had started as a mutual respect for each other's work turned into a genuine love that Isabella hadn't expected but desperately needed. However, as her relationship with David deepened, Isabella found herself facing a difficult choice. She had always defined herself by her career, but now, for the first time, she was faced with the reality that love and relationships also demanded attention and effort. David wanted her to open up more, to prioritize her personal life as much as her professional one. But Isabella wasn't sure she was ready to let go of the career that had consumed her for so long. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, Isabella sat with David in a quiet cafe, contemplating her future. "I don't know if I can do it," she said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I don't know how to balance everything. I've spent so much of my life trying to prove myself, trying to succeed, that I'm afraid I'll lose myself if I let go of that." David reached across the table, gently taking her hand. "Isabella, you don't have to let go of everything. You've built something incredible, but you don't have to do it alone. You've got people who care about you, people who want to see you happy, not just successful." Her eyes filled with tears, a mix of relief and fear. Isabella had spent so much time believing that success was the only thing that mattered, that love was a distraction. But David had shown her that success didn't have to come at the cost of personal happiness. She didn't need to choose between the two, she could have both. It wasn't easy. There were still moments when Isabella doubted herself, when she felt the pull of her career demanding her attention. But with David by her side, she learned to prioritize the things that truly mattered. She found a balance between her ambition and her need for connection. For the first time, she felt like she could truly have it all: love, success, and peace. As Isabella's relationship with David blossomed, so did her ability to heal from the wounds of her past. She learned that it was okay to be vulnerable, to lean on others for support, and to take time for herself. She had always defined her worth by her achievements, but now she understood that her value came not just from what she did, but from who she was. In the end, Isabella's journey was one of transformation. She had started out as a woman determined to prove herself in a world that often seemed stacked against her, but she emerged as someone who understood that love, kindness, and vulnerability were just as important as ambition and success. With David by her side, Isabella knew she could continue her path to success while embracing the joy of living a full, balanced life. The unexpected path to redemption and love. Natalie Harper, at 30, had achieved everything she had ever dreamed of, at least in terms of career. A brilliant, ambitious woman, she had always been determined to make a name for herself in the world of law. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood, Natalie was no stranger to hard work. Her parents, who ran a small family-owned restaurant, had taught her the value of determination and sacrifice. But they had also taught her that success while important, didn't define the whole person. In the back of her mind, however, Natalie could never shake the pressure she felt to prove that she was capable of more than just surviving. She wanted to excel, and she did. After graduating with honors from law school, Natalie quickly rose to the top of her field. She became a senior associate at one of the most prestigious law firms in New York City, handling high-profile cases and working with some of the brightest minds in the industry. On the outside, Natalie appeared to have it all: a successful career, a beautiful apartment, and the admiration of her colleagues. But despite her accomplishments, something was missing. She was lonely. The fast-paced nature of her career had consumed her life, leaving little room for personal connections. Natalie had sacrificed friendships, love, and even family for the sake of climbing the corporate ladder. The constant pressure to be perfect, to constantly prove herself, had created an emotional void she couldn't fill. Her heart longed for more than just accolades and professional recognition. It longed for connection, intimacy, and someone who saw her for who she truly was beyond her career. Enter Ethan Lewis, a 35-year-old successful entrepreneur and philanthropist who had spent years building a real estate empire. Unlike Natalie, Ethan had never sought fame or recognition for his success. Instead, he focused on building meaningful relationships and giving back to his community. Having grown up in a privileged family, he had the resources to pursue his ambitions, but he had always been keenly aware of the balance between wealth and purpose. Ethan was the kind of man who seemed to live life with ease, a stark contrast to Natalie's intense, high-pressure world. Their worlds collided at a charity gala that both attended, albeit for very different reasons. Natalie was there as part of her firm's involvement in the event, while Ethan was a guest of honor, having donated a significant sum to support the cause. When their paths crossed across the crowded ballroom, Natalie immediately noticed Ethan's calm and confident presence. He wasn't the type of person who drew attention with flashy gestures, but there was something magnetic about him, an air of genuine warmth and humility that contrasted sharply with the self-assured professionals in the room. Their conversations started as an exchange of pleasantries, but quickly deepened. Ethan spoke candidly about his passion for social impact, while Natalie found herself surprisingly vulnerable as she shared her own struggles with balancing work and personal fulfillment. She had never opened up like this before, especially not with someone she had just met. Ethan listened intently, his empathy and understanding evident in his eyes. They spoke about the pressures of success, about what it meant to truly live a fulfilling life, and about the importance of emotional connection. For the first time in a long while, Natalie felt truly heard. As the night progressed, their chemistry became undeniable. They danced together, exchanged jokes, and shared stories about their childhoods. Despite their vastly different backgrounds, they found common ground in their shared values: integrity, passion, and the desire to make a difference. Ethan's easygoing nature balanced Natalie's intensity, while her determination and drive intrigued him. It was the beginning of a slow but steady connection, one that neither of them expected. Over the next few months, their relationship blossomed. What started as casual meetings over coffee and dinner soon turned into deeper conversations about life, love, and the future. They both discovered that their lives had been shaped by their pasts in profound ways, but they also realized that they had grown tired of the loneliness that came with their individual success. For Ethan, the long hours spent building his empire had left little room for personal connections, while Natalie's dedication to her career had isolated her from forming genuine relationships. In each other, they found a mirror of their own desires, a desire for love, companionship, and emotional fulfillment. But as their relationship deepened, Natalie found herself at a crossroads. She was falling in love with Ethan, but her career was still a huge part of her identity. She struggled with the idea of balancing both. Would she be able to give up some of the control over her career to make space for Ethan and their relationship? Was it even possible to have it all: love and success? Ethan, on the other hand, had never been as focused on his career. His priorities had always centered around relationships and giving back to the community, but he wanted Natalie to know that he supported her dreams and aspirations. The tension between her ambition and her growing love for Ethan reached a breaking point one evening when they had dinner at a quiet restaurant. Ethan had just returned from a month-long business trip, and Natalie was grappling with a major project at work. "I don't know how much more I can take, Ethan," Natalie confessed, her voice tinged with frustration. "I'm working around the clock on this case, and I'm afraid that if I slow down, everything I've worked for will fall apart. But I also want to be here with you." Ethan reached across the table, gently taking her hand. "Natalie, you don't have to do everything alone. I want to be here for you, whether that means helping you through this tough case or simply supporting you as you figure out what truly matters." For the first time, Natalie realized that she didn't have to choose between her career and her love life. She could pursue her ambitions while also building a meaningful relationship. The key, she realized, was balance and trust. Ethan's love and support had given her the strength to confront her fears and doubts about the future. As the months passed, Natalie and Ethan continued to grow closer. They learned that love, at its core, is about trust, vulnerability, and support. Their relationship became a partnership, where they each helped the other navigate the complexities of their lives. Natalie realized that she didn't need to be perfect or have everything figured out. She just needed to be true to herself and trust in the people who truly cared about her. In the end, Natalie's journey wasn't just about career success. It was about finding the courage to let love in and letting go of the fear that had kept her from truly living. With Ethan by her side, she learned that love and ambition didn't have to be mutually exclusive. They could coexist and help each other grow. And together, they proved that the greatest success in life comes not from what we achieve, but from the relationships we build along the way. A life changed by an unexpected encounter, Jessica Sullivan had always been the kind of person who preferred control. At 27, she had managed to carve out a successful career for herself in the competitive world of marketing, rising quickly through the ranks in one of New York's top advertising agencies. With her sharp mind and tenacious attitude, she had earned the respect of her colleagues, becoming known for her creative ideas and unyielding work ethic. To the outside world, Jessica seemed to have it all: success, a steady job, and a promising future ahead. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Her career was a reflection of years of dedication and hard work, but Jessica had never truly stopped to consider the bigger picture. When she wasn't buried in deadlines or brainstorming sessions, she was rushing from one event to the next, trying to keep up with the whirlwind of responsibilities and social obligations that came with her job. Relationships, both romantic and personal, had taken a back seat. She had convinced herself that love was something she couldn't afford, not when her career demanded so much of her attention. Yet, despite her success, she felt a lingering emptiness. One rainy evening, as Jessica prepared for another long day at the office, she had no idea that an unexpected encounter would soon turn her life upside down. She had stopped at a small coffee shop on the way to work, seeking a quiet moment before the chaos of the day began. The coffee shop, nestled on a quiet corner in the heart of the city, was a haven for those who needed a break from the bustling streets outside. As Jessica settled into her corner with her cappuccino, she noticed a man sitting at the table next to hers. He was absorbed in a book, with a calm demeanor that contrasted sharply with the usual hustle and bustle of the city. His presence was quiet, almost serene, and there was something about him that piqued Jessica's curiosity. His name was Elliot Hayes, a 31-year-old writer who had spent years working in various industries before deciding to pursue his true passion, writing novels. Elliot was an anomaly in a world filled with fast-paced professionals. He had chosen a life of simplicity, moving away from the noise and pressures of city life to focus on his craft. His decision to leave a corporate job and follow his passion had been met with skepticism from many, but Elliot was content. He had found fulfillment in his writing, something that Jessica couldn't quite relate to. It wasn't love at first sight, but when their eyes met for the first time, there was an undeniable spark. Jessica wasn't usually the type to approach strangers, but something about Elliot's quiet confidence drew her in. They struck up a conversation, and before long, the casual exchange turned into an hour-long discussion about books, life, and their respective careers. Jessica was surprised by how comfortable she felt with him. His calm demeanor was a stark contrast to her fast-paced world, but it was refreshing. He listened attentively, offering insights and observations that made her reflect on her own life choices. Elliot's perspective on life was something Jessica had never really considered before. He wasn't driven by ambition in the way she was. Instead, he sought meaning and fulfillment through creativity and connection. He talked about the importance of slowing down and appreciating the small moments in life, something that seemed foreign to Jessica, who was always racing against the clock. "You know, Jessica," Elliot said thoughtfully as they continued their conversation, "sometimes we get so caught up in our careers and chasing success that we forget to actually live. Life is more than just what we achieve. It's about the experiences we have, the relationships we build, and the moments we cherish." Jessica couldn't help but nod, though a part of her resisted. She had spent her whole life focused on building her career, convinced that success was the ultimate measure of a meaningful life. But as Elliot spoke, something began to shift inside her. For the first time, she started to question whether her relentless pursuit of success had come at the cost of something more important, her own happiness. Over the next few weeks, Jessica found herself thinking about Elliot's words more often. She began to look at her life through a new lens, one that wasn't solely focused on work and achievements. She started spending more time with friends and family, reconnecting with the people who had been pushed to the periphery of her life. She made time for things that brought her joy, reading, hiking, and even exploring new creative outlets that had always interested her but never seemed important enough to pursue. But as her life slowly began to change, so did her relationship with Elliot. They continued to meet up, discussing everything from their favorite books to their dreams for the future. Their connection deepened, and Jessica found herself drawn to him in a way she hadn't expected. It wasn't just his quiet confidence that attracted her, it was the way he made her feel understood and valued for who she was, not just for what she could achieve. Elliot had a way of seeing beyond the surface, beyond the titles and accolades, to the person beneath. However, the more Jessica opened up to Elliot, the more she realized how much she had been holding back. She had spent so much time building her career that she had neglected her emotional needs. It wasn't easy for her to admit, but she recognized that her focus on work had kept her from truly living. The irony was not lost on her. She had spent so much of her life chasing success, only to realize that happiness was something she had to allow into her life, not force into it. As their relationship blossomed, Jessica learned to balance her professional ambitions with her personal desires. She didn't need to choose between success and love. She could have both, but it required letting go of the notion that work should always come first. With Elliot's support, Jessica found the courage to embrace a new way of living, one that allowed for both professional achievement and personal fulfillment. In the end, it was the unexpected encounter with Elliot that changed everything for Jessica. It was a reminder that life wasn't just about work and success. It was about love, connection, and finding meaning in the moments that often go unnoticed. With Elliot by her side, Jessica realized that the greatest achievements weren't always the ones listed on a resume, but the ones that shaped the heart and soul. A love that defies expectations. Sophia Carter was living a life many would envy, successful, independent, and on a fast track to becoming one of the top marketing executives at a leading firm in Chicago. At just 29, she had already built a reputation for being a brilliant strategist with a talent for analyzing trends and driving results. Her days were filled with meetings, negotiations, and managing high-profile clients. On the surface, it seemed like Sophia had it all: a thriving career, a beautiful apartment, and the respect of her peers. But despite her success, something was missing. Sophia's career had always been her priority. She believed that to succeed in a competitive world, you had to give everything to your job. Over the years, this single-minded focus had led her to sacrifice personal connections. She had friends, yes, but they were more like acquaintances, people she saw occasionally at work functions or during rare free moments in her schedule. And as for love, it was a distant dream, something she hadn't had time to pursue. But sometimes, Life has a way of throwing unexpected curveballs, and that's exactly what happened when she met Daniel Brooks, a charming, easygoing man who had recently moved to Chicago to open a family-owned cafe. Daniel was everything Sophia wasn't. While she was all about precision, strategy, and success, Daniel lived a life full of spontaneity and creativity. He had spent years traveling around the world, working in various kitchens and learning the art of cooking. His dream wasn't to build an empire, it was to share his love of food and create a space where people could enjoy a good meal and connect over shared experiences. Their first meeting was purely by chance. Sophia had taken a rare break from her hectic schedule and visited the local coffee shop in her neighborhood. It wasn't her usual spot, but something about the quaint cafe intrigued her. As she walked in, she noticed a chalkboard sign outside that read, "Today's special, passionate risotto." Sophia was a sucker for good food, so she decided to give it a try. The cafe, run by Daniel, was warm and inviting, a stark contrast to the sterile, high-rise office building she spent most of her days in. The smell of freshly brewed coffee mixed with the rich scent of simmering risotto filled the air. Sophia sat down at a small table by the window, her attention immediately drawn to the friendly barista behind the counter who seemed to have a natural rapport with every customer. It wasn't long before Daniel himself came over to take her order. With his easy smile and relaxed demeanor, he seemed like someone who had all the time in the world, a stark contrast to the hurried and stressed atmosphere Sophia was used to. They exchanged pleasantries as he recommended the risotto, and Sophia, intrigued by his charm, decided to give it a try. As Daniel brought her the dish, their conversation quickly shifted from food to life. They talked about their passions, their ambitions, and even their fears. Sophia was taken aback by how easy it was to talk to Daniel. He wasn't just interested in her career or her professional success, he was genuinely interested in her as a person. He asked her about her childhood, her dreams, and what made her happy outside of work. It was a refreshing change from the conversations she usually had, which were often centered around business and networking. As the conversation flowed, Sophia found herself laughing and sharing things she hadn't opened up about in years. She wasn't used to being this vulnerable, especially with someone she had just met, but Daniel's authenticity made her feel at ease. There was no judgment, no pressure, just a connection that felt natural and effortless. Over the next few weeks, Sophia found herself returning to the cafe more and more. At first, it was just for the food. Daniel's risotto had quickly become her favorite dish, but soon it was about more than just the food. She started to look forward to their conversations, their shared laughter, and the way Daniel made her feel like she was more than just a successful professional. He saw her as a person, not just a title or a role. As their friendship deepened, so did their feelings for each other. Sophia had always told herself that love wasn't something she had time for, that it was too messy and distracting. But with Daniel, it didn't feel like that at all. Their relationship wasn't built on expectations or obligations. It was built on a shared appreciation for life, for food, and for each other. Daniel showed her that love didn't have to be complicated. It could be simple, genuine, and joyful. But as their connection grew stronger, Sophia began to feel conflicted. She was falling for Daniel, but her career was still her top priority. She had spent so many years focusing on her job that she wasn't sure how to balance it with a relationship. Could she truly have both a successful career and a meaningful love life? She worried that if she let her guard down, she would lose the career she had worked so hard to build. One evening, after a particularly long day at the office, Sophia found herself sitting across from Daniel at the cafe, feeling torn. She couldn't ignore the growing feeling she had for him, but she also couldn't shake the fear that loving him might mean sacrificing her career. "I don't know what to do, Daniel," Sophia admitted, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I love being with you, but my career is everything to me. I worked so hard to get here, and I'm afraid if I let go of that, I won't be able to handle the consequences." Daniel reached across the table, gently taking her hand. "Sophia, you don't have to choose. You can have both. Your career is important, but so is your happiness. You don't have to sacrifice one for the other." His words were simple, yet they struck a chord with her. For For the first time, Sophia realized that she didn't have to choose between love and ambition. She could have both, as long as she was willing to make space for both in her life. Daniel wasn't asking her to abandon her dreams, he was asking her to find balance. To remember that life wasn't just about work and achievements. In the months that followed, Sophia learned to embrace this new way of thinking. She continued to excel in her career, but she also made time for Daniel, for their relationship, and for the simple pleasures in life. They traveled together, cooked meals at home, and enjoyed quiet moments that were just as meaningful as her professional victories. Sophia realized that love and success didn't have to be mutually exclusive. With Daniel by her side, she found the balance. She had been seeking a life that was full of both passion and purpose. Life is often seen as a balancing act between pursuing personal ambitions and nurturing relationships. As we grow older, we may realize that the most meaningful aspects of life are not the accolades we've earned or the milestones we've reached, but the connections we've made and the love we've shared. The story of Jessica and Daniel is a powerful reminder that it's never too late to reassess our priorities. While career and personal achievements are important, they should not come at the cost of the things that truly matter, the relationships that bring us joy, the moments of stillness, and the people who make us feel valued for who we are, not just for what we do. As we age, the importance of emotional fulfillment grows. It is essential to acknowledge that success doesn't always have to be measured by external standards like promotions or financial gain. The real treasures in life often lie in the quieter moments, sitting down with a friend over coffee, sharing a meal with loved ones, or simply enjoying a peaceful walk in nature. These small moments of connection are what truly enrich our lives. It's important to recognize that love and happiness are not distant dreams reserved for the young. They are universal desires that can be fulfilled at any stage of life. Even in our later years, we can form deep, meaningful relationships that provide a sense of purpose and belonging. We must allow ourselves to be vulnerable, open to love, and embrace the connections that offer genuine companionship. The key lesson here is the importance of balance. Too often, we focus so much on what we want to achieve that we forget to nourish our emotional well-being. Achieving career success is fulfilling, but true happiness comes when we also invest in the people and moments that make life rich and meaningful. Life is short, and the years slip by faster than we realize. So it's never too late to slow down, reflect on what matters most, and make space for love, joy, and connection. Thank you for watching. We hope this video has given you some valuable insights on achieving balance in life. If you found it helpful, please like the video and subscribe to Stories TH for more content that will inspire and guide you on your journey to a balanced life.